Great. Hello and welcome to Deciphering Your Body's Clues so that you can heal. Today, I'm laughing because my daughter was just in here in my office and I have a few extra things on the floor today. All right, that's what we're going to go with. I hope that today finds you all doing well. I know that there is, I kind of have a hard time even believing we can have more stress than we've already had for this last couple of years, but there are even more crises going on in the world. So for those of you that are highly empathic or empaths, I know that you are extraordinarily overwhelmed at this moment in time, and I understand. I am as well. If there are, if you'd like to learn how to kind of control some of that empath nature a little bit more, you can actually go to my website, tarameyerrobson.com, click on the empath information, and there's a whole bunch of empath help there. Also, make sure you sign up. I'm about to do a really awesome 5-day challenge from exhausted to empowered. I'm going to give you my very best tips and tools and practices to be able to, within 5 days, feel like a completely different person, feel in control of your gifts. So without further ado, today, this is the podcast where I help to translate any mind-body issues, any pain and disease that you have going on, translate that message and help you to get on the path to healing. This is my passion. This is the work I've done for 15 plus years. And so I love to do this live. If you'd like to jump in and ask me a question live, you can do so at the Zoom link. So if you're watching this on Facebook or watching the live stream on YouTube, underneath that there is an information, there's a Zoom link. You can jump on and come in. You can ask questions anonymously by just changing your name. Doesn't matter to me. Not that I don't care what your name is, but your name doesn't matter in the course of me needing to translate something for you. None of that. That's not important. I can just translate what's going on for you in an anonymous way if that's what you wish. I know a lot of times health issues can be very, just have some private issues or the root of it may in fact be something you don't want to share with the world with your name. So feel free to do that. In today's episode, we're going to talk specifically about stomach pain and translating stomach pain. So I'm going to give you a few examples of different kinds of stomach pain that I've worked with or that I've encountered, and hopefully give you some ideas if you are dealing with stomach pain as to what might be going on and how you can translate this. These earrings are very blingy today. Okay, so for those of you, again, that want to ask a question, feel free, jump in on the Zoom and you are welcome to do so. I will do my best also to make sure that I'm answering questions if you're on my Facebook page as well. I also literally just got a question from somebody in email that I happened to see right before I popped on for the episode, and I'm going to try to go ahead and answer that as well today, even though it's not on stomach pain. I'd like to see what I can do to help translate because this woman is dealing with some stuff. So we're going to start today with a quick little bit of inspiration for the day. We'll see what the universe wants us to take a look at. This is my book, The Flow Method, 40 Days to Total Life Transformation. In here, you can take a test that helps you to pinpoint exactly in which 7 areas of your mind, body, and life you have out of the flow beliefs that are causing you to have repeat patterns in pain and disease in that corresponding, as I call it, station. And once you know that, you'll know exactly how to take yourself through building your own customized action plan that works only for you. And we can talk more about that, but that's, if you want to find it, it's on Amazon and all kinds of, any bookseller basically can get it. So let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and see what inspiration, ooh, that's a good one. Inspiration for today is you do not need to be perfect to be worthy. So that's a real, okay, sometimes the universe gives me, I think we teach what we need sometimes, and sometimes the universe decides to serve up a little something for me too. So I struggle with perfectionism. A lot of people who have, different, have had a lot of experiences in their life where they're can be very hard on themselves. It's what I call station 3 issue. I work on it all the time. I am infinitely better than I used to be. But this is a little reminder because I've been worried because I've got some classes coming up today and my little daughter is homesick. So there's just a lot of things to balance. And so I always worry about things being good enough. So it says a lot of us are you a perfectionist? A lot of us are, and that's not a good thing. When you hold yourself up to a perfect ideal, You are telling life that you don't deserve hope, respect, or any other good thing unless you meet that ideal. Since it's impossible to be perfect, you end up feeling like a failure, never getting what you desire. Perfectionism is also at the root of most addiction. So, perfectionism is inherently your desire to try to control your life through various means. So you can see people with like OCD that do this, but also people that are dealing with addictions like drug addiction or alcohol addiction or even work addiction. It's all, the root is all the same. It tends to be this like trying to live up to the ideal. And when you can't live up to the ideal, you end up sort of trying to dull down things or feel like you have control over some aspect, and that can turn into an addiction. So the big thing is that you are beautiful. You are worthy of the life you desire. You are worthy of the things that you're trying to do in your life, despite whatever you think your flaws are. And in fact, many times the things we think are flaws are actually our assets when we know how to use them properly. So I encourage you, actually, if you struggle with perfectionism, and I do this quite often, to look up people whose failures or flaws ended up being the thing they were known for. And the one that I write about in the book is like Cindy Crawford, who was gorgeous and became this like unbelievable supermodel, and she had this mole on her lip and it became her trademark. So a lot of people would say, oh, you got to get rid of that mole, there's something wrong with you. But instead it became a beauty mark that people actually back in the day I think were trying to draw on. So just remember that those things that you might think of as flaws are actually the things that make you you, and the world needs more people that are uniquely themselves and feeling their own worth. So that's my message for the day. Thanks to the universe for helping me with that. So we're going to talk today about stomach pain. Specifically, a lot of people are dealing with stomach pain in reaction to a lot of the stress in the world as well. So let's take a look. So when we're dealing with stomach pain, whenever you have stomach pain, that's what I call a station 3 issue. And a station 3 issue is always dealing with underlying beliefs about your relationship to yourself. So that can be things like self-esteem, self-worth, not listening to your gut instinct, can be one that shows up a lot. Not feeling that you're allowed to protect yourself, or you may have something in your life that's making you feel that you can't protect yourself, or feel that you're allowed to be a positive leader in your life. I get a lot of people with stomach issues that are dealing with being in groups, oftentimes like religious groups or even work groups that are kind of cult-like. Sometimes you can have some really intense work groups. And that they are feeling that who they are is being sort of swallowed up by the group, and their individuality is not appreciated in that situation, or what they feel like they need to do to protect themselves is not appreciated. So I see that a lot. I see that a lot in people that have been in religious situations where something really negative, like an assault, might have happened, and they were told that it was like their fault that the assault happened, or they were like prayed over, instead of the person who assaulted being the one that was like thrown out of the church. They might have been thrown out of the church. I see this a lot, and this ends up oftentimes coming up. It'll show up a lot in stomach issues. It'll also oftentimes show up in things like a tailbone issue because they feel like they got kicked in the butt, so to speak, or it'll show up in that lower back where it's like they have no support in that area, and they'll have like a slipped disc or herniated disc or something like that where that like support goes out. Those are the ones I see most commonly in that kind of situation. So what we're going to talk about, let's take a look at different stomach issues that can show up. So if you're having, let's say, stomach pain, I want you to take a look at the kind of stomach pain that you're dealing with. If you are dealing with an aching pain, and I've said this in a couple of the episodes, I want you to ask about what about your own sense of self is making you feel heartbroken, or is there like a hit against you that is making you, against who you are, that's making you feel heartbroken. So I'll see people that have been in bullying situations, and yes, adults can be bullied as well. Certainly in work situations, it's very frequent. And they will literally feel this like aching, sick sense, and it's like somebody is punching them in the gut. If you have a sharper pain that is like somebody is actually stabbing you in the gut, stabbing you in the core of who you're at. So if it's a sharp pain, a stabbing pain, it's like it's a next level attack. So I'd want to be looking at, if you were working with me, I'd be wanting to look at who outside you is attacking the very core of who you are. I just worked with somebody recently that she was developing stomach issues, and they were really a trigger because she encountered a similar toxic situation to the situation she grew up in. And the situation she grew up in, she was constantly getting these stabbing pains that were causing her to feel really sick when she was at home. And then when she was at school, she was also being bullied. So, I mean, this poor, well, now woman, it was just an awful situation. Unfortunately, too many people deal with. And so she was being really attacked, right? So she was getting stabbing pain as a child, and then even when she went to school, and then when she was now an adult, she had been fine because she kind of like removed herself completely, literally left the country from where all of this happened. And then she was now getting stabbing pain in her gut again. Why? Because she had encountered another toxic situation where she was being attacked using almost the identical words that her family had used against her, and others that were bullying her had used against her when she was a child. So now that exact same response was showing up in the body, which was showing her that there was this connection of being bullied and being in a toxic situation where she was being attacked for who she is, literally for who she was. Like her creativity was being completely attacked. So when you're looking at that kind of like a stabbing pain, I want you to look at where you're being attacked. If you have an aching pain, I want you to look at what is making you feel heartbroken, that maybe you're being misunderstood, you don't feel protected. Then sometimes you just get that like sick sense to, sick to your stomach, feeling, oh, I just feel sick to my stomach, like that nausea type thing. And whenever you're looking at that, I want you to look at what are you taking in from the outside that is that is like not good for you, that is against who you are as a person, it's sort of against your individuality, but is literally repulsive to you. There's something that you're taking in, or there's a sense. Notice if you start feeling sick to your stomach around certain people. That's going to actually tell you those people, for whatever reason, are sort of an attack against who you are. So that's a good one. If you're feeling like nauseated, it's like you literally, your body is going, I don't want to take this in. I don't want to take that. This is making me sick. I don't want to take whatever this is in. I'll also see that oftentimes if somebody is in a situation where it's almost a shock to the system kind of thing, where perhaps, you're going along and somebody is a nice, has been nice or has been your friend, and then they just completely betray you, right? That's very hard to take in. And oftentimes it is like a punch to the gut. So if you feel that almost intense, like your stomach cramps and almost like you want to throw up, and it's in relation, take a look at where have you felt like you were actually punched in the gut by somebody, where it was a shock. So another one that you can have showing up in your stomach quite often is ulcers. I have personal experience with this. I was about 25-ish years old, and I developed ulcers out of nowhere. Very, very healthy, was eating healthy, actually was eating vegetarian, eating very healthy. There wasn't anything physically that made any sense. So I got ulcers. I think I ended up with 2 ulcers at first. And then I ended up, I went to the doctor. He's a very kind person. He put me on like antacids. And so I started taking those. And when I went back the next time, my ulcers actually had gotten worse. I had another ulcer after taking this antacid, which made, really medically no sense, right? That shouldn't have happened. And so at that point, I realized that something else had to be going on. I started taking yoga. I started getting very aware of the fact that actually what was happening is I was in a relationship that I knew I needed to end, but I didn't want to hurt that person, but it was not the right relationship for me. And so it was a pretty big one because I was actually engaged and I needed to make a decision on that. And I just don't like hurting people, even if it's not a great situation. And I was also in a job that there was just a lot of conflict and difficulty going on. And I was very, very stressed about that as well. And I just felt like I wasn't living up to some things. And Instead of speaking up and saying something about what all of that and dealing with the relationships and dealing with all of that, I didn't. And instead, what I did was I ate away. I was literally eating away at myself. So what is an ulcer? The ulcer is like literally the acid starts eating away at your stomach lining and you get these like wounds. So in my case, I was actually, instead of dealing with what I needed to deal with in front of me and trying to see if I could remove myself from one situation and make another situation like better, instead of that, instead of dealing with it that way, I was eating away at myself and like basically letting it just fester essentially in my stomach because I wasn't dealing with it. They were things that I knew I needed to deal with for my own well-being, but I wasn't, again, that was that sense of self. So if you're dealing with ulcers, I'd like you to look at, what is a personal truth that you need to speak or something in your gut. You have a gut, like I had a gut instinct. I needed to end that relationship, right? But I didn't want to listen to it because I didn't want to hurt the person. So I turned it inward, right? So what's your gut instinct? What gut instinct do you have that you're not dealing with, that you're not willing to speak and have come out or deal with whatever it is you have to deal with? And sometimes I see this a lot in people that are really empathic, extremely kind-hearted people. Ulcers seem to come up more in those kinds of people. And I think it is because we inherently don't want to hurt another person. So we'd almost rather hurt ourselves than hurt another person, right? So in this particular case, that was very true for me. And I'd ask that if you're dealing with ulcers, that might be true for you as well. Now, and I think I talked about this in one of the episodes, but if you have something like acid reflux that's like pushing up from your stomach and eating away here, and I had that as well actually at the time. And I will say, actually, when I dealt with the things I needed to deal with, so I ended the engagement and I dealt with some other things, my ulcers healed on their own. I actually stopped taking the antacid because it wasn't working. And my ulcers healed on its own. Of course, I was also doing yoga and starting to learn about this mind-body connection that I now do for a living. But if you have acid that's coming up and like eating away at your esophagus, whenever I look at that, I want you to take a look at where do you feel like there are things you need to say, or that your voice is being criticized and you feel like you can't speak your truth. So that truth is almost eating away at you. Okay. So it's like stuck in your throat and it's eating away at you. I had somebody who had severe acid reflux, and, we figured out the root and the trigger was that her mom constantly told her, you talk too much. And so she had things to say, but because she was afraid that it was going to be like she was talking too much, doing too much, she was eating away at herself, like literally eating away at her throat. So I want you to take a look at that. If you have that as an additional stomach issue, the acid reflux coming up, then take a look at that as well. So those are a few stomach issues. If you have stomach things going on and you have a question, feel free to send me what's going on with you. I'm going to take a quick look now before I finish off here today. And just take a quick look at this question that literally just came in right before I went on air. So it's, hello, Tara. I hope you can help. I've been suffering chronic insomnia for years. It's taking a toll on my health and my life. I can't figure it out. I usually take natural sleep remedies. I don't like to take over the counters, OTCs, but sometimes I just need to sleep. And if you have, which I can only imagine, I mean, I actually had we had some things going on, and I had a really bad week of insomnia myself last week, and it was only 1 week, and it was starting to get to me. I can understand. Sometimes you just got to sleep. And if you have time, I also have high-pitched hearing loss, mostly on the left and some on the right. The doctors don't know why. Thank you so much. Many blessings. Oh, thanks. And I'm going to leave her name off it just for anonymity. Okay, so let's see. Let's take the insomnia first. So first thing first, when you're dealing with insomnia, what I oftentimes am dealing with someone with insomnia is there is some kind of trigger happening at the end of the day that is making them feel that they need to be hyper vigilant at night. So whether that is, I had somebody that I worked with that unfortunately had an abuse situation happening at night when she was a child. And so now, needless to say, it starts to get dark, right? And that has become a trigger for her in not being able to sleep very reasonably, because she needed to be hyper vigilant because she wasn't sure if this person was going to come in and harm her again. So that can be one thing, but even if it's not something quite that serious, it can also be something that as you're going to go working towards going to sleep, that you feel like you need to be hyper vigilant. So one thing I always want to look at when I'm dealing with somebody with insomnia is, have you had traumas or something traumatic that's happened when you are sleeping? What about going to sleep makes you feel like you're vulnerable and can't trust what's happening? That can be one of the issues. With chronic insomnia, it's probably going to be something pretty long. I'd want to be looking all the way back to childhood, probably on this one, to see what kinds of things sort of led to this. Insomnia is so complex that I can't give one specific answer. I can give kind of a generality on this, and hopefully I can get some more information from her, at least via email, so I can kind of dig in on this one a bit more. But that's usually what's going on. It also oftentimes can be, if you are a highly empathic, highly sensitive person, and you're walking around all just open, right? You are soaking in everything, all the tension, all the worry, all the stress, all the anxiety, all the joy, all the good things too, all the sadness, all the happiness. You're soaking it in. You're soaking it in all day long, like you're, some sort of radio transmitter, and just like pulling every possible station of everything in all day long. If you don't know how to turn that off at the end of the day, that means you are still connected to it. So what I like to liken that to is, like, if you were put in a room with like 5,000 speakers all pointing at you, right? And they were all playing every different kind of thing: talk radio, rock, rap, jazz, symphony, happy talk radio, crazy talk radio, far right, far left, whatever, all the everything that's going on, right? So if you are in the middle of that room and everything is coming at you at once, it wouldn't take too long for you to feel pretty overstimulated and overwhelmed, right? And that's essentially what's happening with an empath, especially a really, really, really highly sensitive empath. And that person is walking through, and it's as if, everyone they walk past, everyone they interact with, even online, working with people, seeing people, coworkers, you're picking it all up. If you don't know how to basically shut off all of that during the day, and then at night, when you try to go to sleep, you're still connected to it. It's as if you're still in the middle of that room and all of this is still bombarding you. And if that's the case, and you're a highly sensitive person and you're bombarded with that and you're trying to go to sleep, you couldn't go to sleep in that situation, right? So that's literally what's going on with somebody with a really highly tuned nervous system that's a very empathic person. They're literally picking up. Thankfully now science is kind of being able to show that a person who's an empath, their nervous system is actually different. It's more finely tuned than the average person. They really are hearing things louder. They really are sensing other people's emotions. They can show in the parts of the brain now that parts of our brain is actually lighting up in completely different ways. And just with the brain scan, they can tell whether somebody is an empath, a person who's picking up all this emotional stuff, or not. So it's a physical thing. People act like it's woo-woo. It's actually not. This is very physical. It's very real. So if this particular individual that sent in this question happens to be that kind of person, or if you're listening to this and you're that kind of person, one of the things that I like to teach is to create a shield around you. I teach it in a really specific way. There's a lot of different ways to teach it. I teach it coming from your center, from your core. The reason I do that actually ties in with what we've been talking about already today, is because when your stomach is your center, it's your core, it's the core of who you are, it's your individuality, and it's also where you can set like boundaries. You feel like you can create safety for yourself, right? So if you can pull yourself really into that space and then imagine pulling that light all the way around you and over you, that sets up a healthy boundary from the core of who you are. So I teach that. In fact, as I said at the beginning, I'm about to teach a 5-day challenge. So if you're interested in jumping in on that, I'm keeping the cost very low to try to help as many people as I can. You can jump in on tarameyerrobson.com. So, and then at the end of the day, if this is something that's going on with you, you can actually start to imagine that you are clearing the energy out all the way down. You're disconnecting. You can imagine that you're actually pulling your energy back, like pulling electric cords out of the wall. That can help. And you can even, if you're a very tactile person, you can actually pick up a cord if you really want to and yank that out. Or you can just imagine that you're pulling cords out. So that can help a lot. And then I also have a meditation that's in the body language course that is on releasing anxiety and worry and kind of creating that space of decompressing and feeling that you're safe and you can let go of everything. Usually when I'm dealing with insomnia, I'm dealing with people that they feel that they are responsible for everyone and everything. Again, hypervigilant in many different ways, depending on the trigger, and are unable to turn it off or turn off the mind. So I personally do go through bouts of insomnia where I cannot turn my mind off because of something traumatic going on in the world, something traumatic going on in life, whatever. I have a hard time sometimes turning it off myself. So these are practices that can really help. Now, we still have a couple minutes, so I do want to get to the high-pitched. So let me look at this again, exactly what she said. She has high-pitched hearing loss. So I'm assuming that means that she's lost the higher parts of her hearing. Okay, so whenever I deal with somebody who's lost the higher part, the high sounds, higher sounds, high frequency sounds, whenever I'm dealing with that, I'm dealing with someone who is mostly on the left and some on the right. Okay, so I believe this is a female. Yeah. Okay. So my feeling is, my translation for this is, when you're losing that high frequency part of your hearing, it means that you are not feeling connected to a higher power, spirit, source, God, Allah, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. Whatever you believe in, you're feeling a disconnection from your higher self, that higher power. Okay. If it's showing up on the left, my guess is it's either a female in her life that is causing her to feel this disconnect from any kind of higher self or higher power, or she has been through some traumatic things herself that's causing her to not feel this connection to her intuition, to her higher self, that she's needing to turn it down, or more usually what's happening is she's literally feeling that she's just completely lost that connection, or something has happened and lost that connection. I'd be curious to find out, and I will be emailing in a minute to find out when the hearing loss started, because that'll tell us exactly what's happened that's caused the disconnect. She has some on her right, so my guess is there may be a male in her life as well that's somehow playing into her disconnecting from this sense of spirit, but it's going to be primarily on the female side. So the main thing that in this case I'd want to work on with her is finding out exactly when the timing was, when the actual event happened. We'd be able to pinpoint that event that's happened that has pulled her away from her higher self. I do think the insomnia and this loss of higher hearing are connected, because when we lose our connectedness with our higher selves, with a source, with believing that there is some sort of, plan or something to this crazy chaos that we see in our day-to-day lives, when we lose that aspect, it can also make us feel very overwhelmed and vulnerable at night, right? Because there's no sense of overarching safety. For a lot of people to have that sense that either God is watching over them, or Jesus, or, whatever, many spirit guides, it doesn't really matter. And so when we lose that sense, obviously insomnia can also result from that. So I actually think these two things are connected. I'm going to see if I can get a bit more information, and I can probably pinpoint exactly what's happened and where it's happened and how to change it. But right off the bat, my recommendations for her are right off the bat to be shielding up during the day, shutting things out a little bit, like not pulling and taking on so much. Decompressing and disconnecting at night, literally pulling the energy back. And then I'd want to do some practices with her slowly on being able to reconnect with whatever spiritual aspect she believes in, however she calls it. I do like personally some sort of gentle ritual that allows the person to reconnect to that higher self. And I'd also want to take a look at where did the loss, why has the loss happened in the first place? And if we can get there, we can heal that root of the loss and be able to help her reconnect and hopefully also help with the insomnia. So I'm going to go ahead and send her a note here in just a second. I want to thank everybody for being here. I am in about an hour and a half doing a free paid training, or a free training, I should say, a free training for specifically, I'm looking for empaths who would love to change lives and do the kind of work that I do. I am going to be doing, starting March like 20th, 21st, starting my very first coaching certification in my methodology, which is both from the flow method and also my body language course. So if you're an empath and you have ever wanted to be able to every day, not only control your empath nature, but use your gifts as gifts and not feel like it's a curse, which most of us felt like for a long time, I'd encourage you to jump in. Yeah, as I said, it's about an hour and a half. If you want to jump in, it's masterthematrixcertification.com. You can still register for a little while longer before we go live. And I'm going to show you how you could become, if you're an empath, how to use your gifts to not only change lives, but to create an unbelievable, wonderful business for yourself. People always ask me what I do. And I say, I get to help people every single day. And that's the best thing in the world. And that literally is the best thing in the world to me. So if you feel that way too, you might be the person I'm looking for. I have 3 slots left in my certification. We're going to start with a relatively small group because I want to make sure I can support each person as much as possible. So I'm literally taking like 3 more people tops. So if this sounds like you, please go ahead, register, jump in today, or register. And if you can't make it, you can get the replay. Anyways, thank you so much for being here. Remember, you don't need to be perfect to be worthy. That's our inspiration for today. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them under the video. I'm happy to answer, or you can jump on my website at tarameyerrobson.com and send me a quick email. Thank you for being here today. May today and every day be in the flow with the life of your dreams, and may you have happiness and health and wellness and all good things. See you again next time.